Well, good morning and happy Saturday to everyone. Hope you're doing well and you're enjoying what looks like across the country an early spring. Weather is getting warmer. I think today we're supposed to hit almost 60 degrees in the Twin Cities. So a lot of folks are feeling that spring fever, aren't they? They're feeling that spring fever and excited to get a warm up after what's been a fairly cold winter. We haven't had much in the way of snow, but we've had a fair amount of cold, and I think folks are tired of it, don't you? So, a little bit about the live stream today. We're going to be focusing on a machine that I don't believe that I've ever presented before on this channel before. It's a Japanese-made white machine. Now, I've done those, but this particular model I've not done before. It's a model 742, and the unique thing about this model is that it was made by the first domestic Japanese sewing machine company ever established. So I'm going to let folks kind of ponder that a little bit and maybe throw some guesses out as to what company that is. It came up in our top 12 list when I presented the best Japanese sewing machine companies in the world recently. So it's in that top 12. And we'll see if you can figure it out. And if you're the first one to type that answer into the live chat, if you're the first one, then I'll look at giving you something special as a gift. I'll mail it to you no matter where you are in the world, and you'll have a chance to enjoy that. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'll just tell you it's going to be a fun surprise. So get guessing and see if you can figure out what machine manufacturer that is that made this model 742. Now, this model belongs to Darlene, and Darlene is from West St. Paul, Minnesota. I didn't even know that there was a West St. Paul. I knew there was a St. Paul, but I didn't know there was a West St. Paul. And when Susie and I traveled out to her place to pick this machine up and also pick up another machine as well, a really cool Singer 1591 that I had to pull from Darlene's table for her, we had to cross over this big river. If anyone knows what river we crossed over to get into West St. Paul from the Minneapolis area, go ahead and type that in the live chat as well. You can demonstrate your geography knowledge. But this is really a pretty cool machine. And I love the fact that it's got what I call a power booster as well. It's got a power booster that allows you, with a simple flip of a switch over here, to give that motor that's inside of this machine a supercharge if you're going to be wanting to sew faster and with a little bit more vigor. So all I can say is get busy. It's Saturday, for goodness sake, and see if you can figure it out. Figure out those answers that I want you to give. The other thing I'll ask you is, with this white sewing machine that was made by the first sewing machine company in Japan, and I'll give you a hint. This domestic sewing machine company in Japan was established in the 1920s. So if that helps you zero in even further, fantastic. And Shirley's got an answer in there. I'm going to ask Susie to fact check it, or anyone else that's from Minnesota, if that is the correct answer as to what river we passed over from Minneapolis into West St. Paul. So if the Mississippi, the mighty Mississippi, is the correct answer, then kudos to Shirley for jumping out there and nailing it. Kudos to Shirley. But Darlene is excited to get this machine back in particular because this machine has been her go-to machine for everything. The 1591 is a cool machine, and she's hoping to get that running well again with Workshop Magic. But this really has been the machine that she depends on for pretty much all of her sewing. So I know she's going to be incredibly excited, hoping to get the 1591 done over the next couple of days. and then get both of these machines back to her out in West St. Paul, Minnesota. And Bill, who's also from Minnesota, has confirmed that Shirley's correct. And if a person in Minnesota doesn't know, then none of us know. Even though I'm in Minnesota, I'm still very much on the learning curve when it comes to, all the things that make you a Minnesotan type person. I haven't even put on purple yet, but as we get closer to Easter, I might put purple on as well. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. So any guesses as to the size motor that's in this white model 742? And it's going to be a tricky answer because it really has two motor capacities with that booster it had over here. You can kind of see that little switch here. That's part of that power cord. You can pull the power cord out, sort of. There we go. You pull the power cord out, and then it's got this little switch right there that allows you to boost the power on this machine. There's other sewing machine companies that came up with similar concepts, like the Necky Sewing Machine Company. But I like this one being located on the power cord. It's not part of the makeup of the machine itself. It's part of the power cord. So if something fails with regard to that power boost, it's as simple as replacing the cord. It doesn't require an expensive mechanical repair on the machine. You're also going to see that we've got some different stitch options on this model 742 that we're going to be checking out today. We've got one mode right here that allows us to do straight and zigzag sewing. We've got they call it the multiple zigzag stitch. I call it the 3-point zigzag stitch. We've got different buttonhole options. We've got an overlock stitch. We've got a feather stitch. We've got a stretch type stitch. And then finally, we've got a blind stitch as well. So we're going to be trying out those different stitches on this model 742 today. And it's fairly easy to dial them up. So that's kind of neat as well. It gives you the option to kind of pivot around between different stitches and enjoy a fairly nice wide variety of stitch options as well. I'll just kind of walk you around the machine a little bit. I'm going to move some of the sew-off materials out of the way so I might be able to get just a little bit closer. And I've got a good assortment of sew-off options today. So I'm gonna ask for your help in choosing the type of stitch that we're going to lay down on them. This is what I have prepared. I don't know that we're going to get through all of this in the live stream today, but we'll give it a go. We'll see how far we can get. So as we walk around this model 742, and I haven't seen anybody guess yet. I haven't seen anyone guess the answer as to who was the first domestic sewing machine company established in the 1920s that made this machine. And maybe you guys are still warming up. It is fairly early Saturday morning, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there. But let's walk around the machine to begin with and get more acquainted with this machine, and then we'll focus on some of the other attributes, including the motor size. So down here, we've got a feed dog drop. I'll get a little bit closer so you can kind of see it. We've got a feed dog drop option right here. And it allows you to, in stage 2 right here, it allows you to obviously sew with those feed dogs fully engaged. If you click it to 1, it's going to drop the feed dogs partially for those lighter material sew-offs, silk, satin, etc. And if you want the feed dogs all the way down, you can turn it to 0, and you can do free motion quilting or freehand embroidery without any feed dog gripping at all. But for our purposes today, we're pretty much going to stay in stage number 2 and enjoy the benefits of those really cool pyramid diamond style pyramid feed dogs that were classically developed in Switzerland and then went across a wide spectrum of different machines. Over here, we've got stitch length, and our friends in Japan want to make it really easy for us. So they put stitch length right there. There's hardly no mistaking that. And the stitch length gives you a wide variety, all the way down to almost 5 stitches per inch. And on the low end scale, almost all the way down to 30 stitches per inch. So it's going to be comparable to what we would expect a Swedish beauty to be doing, from about 5 to 30 stitches per inch. And they also give you little cues depending on the stitch you're doing. If you're doing some of these blue tri-motion stitches, it's going to tell you to set it on 4, and it even makes that 4 stand out with kind of a blue that matches the blue here, blue purple, if you will. And then you can adjust it accordingly. You can go over here if you're doing buttonholes. It's going to give you a real nice diagram showing you move your stitch length over here if you're doing buttonholes. We've got our stitch width up here, and the stitch width is going to give you a nice range of width for the needle swing type stitches, whether it's the tri-motion or whether it's the more standard stitches up here that we'll be doing. And then it's got an M setting right here. You might be able to see that. It's got an M setting that is specifically designated for straight stitching. So it's going to automatically, with the straight stitching, it's going to default the straight stitch. It's also going to give you a nice center needle position. This machine is not designed with a left and a right needle position, unfortunately, but it does give you a nice easy setting for straight stitching. Then we move over here. You can see, again, we've got a nice assortment of stitches. We've got everything, like I said, from straight and zigzag to blind hem. We've got the 3-point zigzag. We've got a small assortment of stretch, tri-motion type stitches with an overlock stitch, a feather stitch, and a stretch stitch. The stretch stitch is going to be, I call it kind of a pearlized straight stitch. You'll see when we do it, it's a really cool looking stitch. And over here, we've got our upper tension, fairly easy to set, I think. And you'll notice we don't have a take-up spring. Or it appears we don't. It's because it's recessed in the housing of the upper tension. And I'll tell you one thing, having on more than one occasion caught a take-up spring and bent it out of alignment, and then had to be very carefully, taking that take-up spring and straightening it out again and getting it realigned again. I think there's a lot of wisdom in recessing that take-up spring into the housing of the upper tension. That way you're less likely to snag it and damage it. And it works just as well, doesn't it? It works quite nicely. And then we've got this classic light showing through the faceplate area, which is indicative of a lot of Japanese machines. As a matter of fact, I would go so far as to say that the Japanese had a hand in developing this cool little concept, this red light, just to give it kind of that feature look that you would expect to see in a Japanese-made machine. They also give us fairly easy access to the faceplate. We can kind of rotate this open. I don't want to go too far because we've got our threading going through there, but you can access this area for servicing and maintenance as well. And this is a well-built machine, like most of the Japanese machines. It's built well. It's built sturdy. But if you can see, my magnet is not reacting to it, but we know this is some sort of a metal, probably an alloy that includes aluminum, because we're not getting any ferrous response from the magnet. So the machine also is not quite as heavy as some of the traditional Japanese machines. It's made a little bit lighter weight. So the portability factor of this is quite nice. The other thing that I'll show you right away is whenever we talk about Japanese machines, we're always expecting to see a hook system in here that would be consistent with an oscillating hook system, right? The oscillating hook system, again, is going to have that pendulum effect. But on this Japanese model 742, we actually have a rotary hook system that's engineered into this machine. And they've got some helpful little diagrams like this one right here that tells you straight away how you should be orientating that thread when you have that bobbin case and bobbin and you're bringing the two together to set the machine up for sewing. On this one, we're going to have that coming underneath the bottom. Bring the bobbin case and the bobbin together. You bring them in. That thread is going to be with that thread coming underneath the bottom, which is going to cause this to turn counterclockwise in the sewing process. But little cues like this, it's a little sticker that they put in here, apparently realizing that the Japanese machines were made with both threading options with the bobbin case, whether it was oscillating or whether it was rotary. So they wanted to make sure people were set up for success. Also, I love these little releases right here that allow you to quickly take out the hook system and the retainer plate and do some nice deep cleaning regularly to get that raceway nice and tidy so that it's going to deliver a better stitch as well. And you can see I've already done some sample testing with our needle in here. I do have a leather needle today, a size 90-14 by Schmetz. That's what we'll be using for sewing everything. Cotton material. I think we have some canvas. We've got just a wide variety of different materials we'll be sewing. And we will be using a leather needle to do that with today, along with our genuine cowhide that you can see underneath the presser foot here. I think you can see that to some extent. Yeah. And there you can see we've got our standard straight stitch, we've got our zigzag, and then we've got a very elongated 3-point zigzag that we'll be sewing as well today. So, so let me do this. Let me, excuse me. I think with the weather changes, it's affecting my voice a little bit as well. But let me get this machine rotated around so that we can get into this machine. I've got a lot of things on the docket today. I'm sure you do as well, with continued work on Candido and Rachel's motors that you can kind of see them through the harp space over there. If my voice doesn't go out, hopefully we'll be able to wrap up this live stream a little bit sooner than later. And I'm going to drink a little bit of this as well, see if that'll strip some of the gunk off of my throat and allow me to proceed without gagging and choking and making all kinds of awful sounds that hopefully my microphone isn't picking all of them up. All right. I'm going to get this rotated around and we'll get busy checking this Japanese machine out. And I don't think anyone guessed it, so I'm going to give you the answer. No one guessed, first of all, what manufacturer was involved. Oh, it looks like Teresa has to kind of pop in and out. So what manufacturer was involved in producing this machine? And you can tell it by the branding on the motor inside of the casing. You can't see the motor on the outside, but when you open the machine up, you can see the motor is stamped with this manufacturer's name, and also the power cord as well with that cool little power boost is also stamped with this manufacturer's name. And that manufacturer is the one that we say the name means eye of the snake. Eye of the snake. So if you know eye of the snake and the manufacturer that their name means that, and they got that name again by looking at bobbins and saying it looked like the eye of a snake, then type the name of that manufacturing company. Again, it was the first domestic sewing machine company established in Japan, and they were involved in building this model that Darlene loves so much. So if you know that name, type it in the live chat. Also, I'll tell you the motor is marked 0.75, but the outside casing on the rear of the machine is marked 1 amp. So my best guess is this little power switch that's part of the power cord, this power switch, when you boost it up to the highest setting, it takes you from 0.75 to 1 amp. So you've got a choice of either 0.75 or 1 amp, and it kind of super boosts that motor and gives it a little bit more grit, a little bit more gusto. And Al Koss, aka Alex, is correct with his second answer of Janome. This machine was made, or Janome had a hand in making this machine. And again, they were established right around 1921 as the first Japanese domestic sewing machine company in that country. So if you didn't know that, you know that now. And they did again show up in our top 12 of the best sewing machine manufacturers in the world today. So Janome has a proud tradition, and they also have bragging rights of being the very first domestic Japanese sewing machine company in the country. So what do they say? When you're first, it's hard for everybody else to try to catch you, isn't it? It's really hard for everyone else to catch you when you're the first in the marketplace. Pepsi has been trying to catch Coca-Cola for decades as far as market share, and they haven't been able to do it because Coke was first. So I think there's a lot of power in being first in the marketplace. Whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, being first in the marketplace carries a lot of credo, a lot of credibility. So, all right, so let's get into this machine a little bit. Before I do that, though, I'm going to go down the list a little bit and say some quick good mornings to the family. And I was a little bit sneaky today. I was first in the classroom. Today. I even beat Susie, and today Shirley beat Susie as well. So I think Susie was involved in something as we were getting ready to start the live stream. And in fairness, I also started this live stream a little bit early as well. But good morning, this Shirley. Great to have Shirley here. Great to also have, let's see, Bill from Minnesota. And I'll say hello to the rest of Bill's family as well. Lisa, his daughter, and also their dog as well, Norma. And you might remember many months ago, I sent a special treat to Bill and Lisa's dog, Norma, a biscuit. And Bill had shared a picture of him giving that to her. And I did post that on Facebook. So if you go to the Facebook Cow Country page and you search with the word Norma, you might find it. You might. I think you might. Who else do we have? We also have our good friend Alex from California, who always is rubbing it in about the warm weather out there. But at least we're getting some warm weather now in the Midwest. But it's always great to have Alex as part of the live stream. And I had asked Alex quite some time ago. I asked Alex quite some time ago about joining the moderating team. And he was really busy at that time with the ramp up of his entrepreneurial venture that he's doing with his wife of making preemie clothes. You might remember that Alex was really busy with his wife making preemie clothes and trying to get that rolled out and get that rollout of the company. Well, that's been done now. So Alex doesn't have that extra responsibility, that extra distraction anymore. In fact, Alex has actually taken on a secondary job, as most of the family knows. So I jumped to some conclusions that he might have just a little bit more of a comfort level with me appointing him as a moderator. And I just did that right now. So Alex now is part of the leadership team. Alex is part of the moderating team. He's starting as a standard moderator, And after he kind of settles into it and he accepts the fact that I kind of pushed him into it a little bit, because I love Alex's participation. I love having Alex in the live streams, and knowing the background that oftentimes his wife is in the background as well. So having his family as a part of our family is really cool. And so I wanted to recognize him, since his life is settling a little bit now, with that entrepreneurial venture with Preemie Clothes officially being rolled out and having a very successful rollout. I wanted to appoint Alex as part of the moderating team. So congratulations to Alex, even though I kind of gently pushed him into it just a little bit. Just a little bit. Let's see if we have anybody else. I don't think we have a lot of live chatting going on yet. It looks like Jenny has popped in as well, our ambassador to Needles, which I'm delighted to see Jenny, because Jenny has some personal stuff that she's managing right now that involve her family, and that becomes an all-consuming quest, right? Because family is first. Family is first. So I'm delighted that Jenny was able to pop in. I don't know how long she can stay. If she can stay the whole time, that's wonderful. If she can't, I totally understand. But it's great to have Jenny here as well. Great to have Jenny here. All right. So I think that's about it for folks that are in the live chat right now. I'm going to go ahead and pivot now over to this Japanese machine that Janome had a hand in. And we're going to start putting this machine to work a little bit. But first of all, I want to show you our sew-off options and see if anybody has any strong input on what you'd like to see first. What you would like to see first. So I'm going to kind of show you what I've got. I've got some of this Italian leather. I haven't sewn on this for a while. Got some of this Italian leather. So this is certainly an option for us. Matter of fact, I've got two pieces of it that we could certainly do back to back, just to kind of test that motor booster off on this Janome machine. I've got some genuine cowhide. Maybe I'll do a sew off at the end. This is all genuine cowhide. I'm going to kind of put our leather together. We've got some 100% cotton, several different versions of 100% cotton. I've got just standard 100% cotton. I was thinking about doing 8 layers of it. And then we've got 100% cotton, kind of this cool, what color is this? What color would you call this to be? Is it a cranberry or a ruby red? Or I don't think it's quite red enough to be ruby red, is it? But we got this red type cotton as well. And this setup right here, I've got some quilt batting in between. So we're going to be doing some 100% cotton just straight up, 100% cotton with quilt batting. And then we also have 100% cotton with a little bit of a stiffener in it. And I thought I would kind of go down the line and do all the stitches that the machine can do on this 100% cotton with this real thin, really thin stiffener in between it, just to give a little bit more stabilizing for some of those tri-motion stitches. Then I've got this outdoor material. We've done this several times. It can create a little bit of havoc for these machines, but we're going to see how the machine does with this today. We'll see how the machine does with this outdoor material. We've got our Amazon packing parchment paper stuff. We've got some vinyl. We've got some of this we've got some of this fake fleece material that's made out of 100% polyester. We've got satin, 100% satin material with a little bit of stiffener in there, so we can go to the light side. And the cool thing about this Janome made model 742 is it's got that really cool presser foot release right here, so we can increase or decrease very easily. We can also take the presser foot pressure completely away by pushing that outer ring. And you can see they even have a little red marker right here. I think you can kind of see that. They got a red marker on that presser foot tower, so you can see where that sweet spot is. That sweet spot that allows you to get a nice medium range of presser foot pressure. And all you do is just push this down to right about there, and then you've got that medium range. Or if you're going super heavy duty, just go further down, like to right about there. And again, if you go too far down, just release it, start over. So we'll start right about there. And then if we have to increase or decrease, we can certainly do that with this machine. Where was I? I think I was on satin. So we've got satin right here. We've got some of this heavy-duty denim that we can sew as well today during the live stream. We've got some of this, looks like a canvas material, doesn't it? We've got some of this canvas material as well. So canvas denim, we've got outdoor material. We've got Amazon packing parchment paper. We'll probably do that near the end. We've got some of this vinyl. We've got some of this fake fleece material, some of this satin, and then all of these cotton materials as well, coupled with the leathers you can kind of see off camera over here. So if anyone has any input on what they want to see first and the type of stitch you want to see, I'm going to give you the stitch options again so you can kind of see those. So our stitch options again is straight, zigzag, a 3-point zigzag. I'm not going to do any buttonholing. You know I kind of have an aversion to doing buttonholes, but we do have an overlock stitch, a feather stitch, a stretch stitch, and then a blind stitch as well. So if you have a particular stitch and a particular material you want to see, then type that into the live chat, and I will try to honor that request for that particular stitch. I think I'm going to move these over here so we can get a little bit closer to this machine. A little bit closer. Might even angle it a little bit so we can kind of see down the edge of this machine also. Just angle it a little bit. All right, so I'm going to look and see zigzag on leather. Shirley's saying, let's zigzag some leather. What kind of leather are you thinking about, Shirley? Are you thinking Italian or are you thinking genuine cowhide? Italian or genuine cowhide? Let me know what your thoughts are, Shirley, and we'll try to focus on that leather sew off first. I'm also going to move this back a little bit so we can maybe sneak the camera in there a little bit closer. Okay, we're going to do Italian. We haven't done Italian in a while, so I'm kind of excited to try that. We'll go with this long strip first, some Italian leather. And I'm going to leave that presser foot pressure where it is. And I think we'll go down and do a straight stitch first. We'll lay down either a zigzag or maybe we'll do a 3-point zigzag on this Italian leather that Shirley has picked. Also, I want to get that take-up arm. Get that take-up arm all the way up. If you're brand new to sewing, you want to get that take-up arm at the highest position so it's just getting ready to downstroke like that. Just about like that. All right, so let's lay down a straight stitch on this Italian style leather. And then we'll move into some of the other stitch offs we've got. Let's see, I want to check my settings. Straight stitch. And I've got a fairly long straight stitch. We'll see how our Janome made model 742 does with this particular sew off. All right, here we go. I'm going to see if I get this has kind of a weird foot controller. I'm not a big fan of this foot controller. I'll just show it to you real quick. You know, the idea is to put it like this and then to put your foot on there. But because of the raise on this, you've got a raise of almost 2.5 inches. It's really, really awkward to get your foot on this thing. I'm not a big fan of this. And no matter which way you face it, it's kind of an awkward foot controller. So I'm going to stop my whining and see if I can get my foot on there nonetheless. And we'll do this first sew off on this Italian leather material. All right, let me give it a go. Almost got it. All right, I'm going to slide it over just a little bit further, see if we can get a little bit more room on here. Trying to get it straight. All right, I got it pretty straight now. So we're doing a straight stitch for Shirley on this Italian leather. Let's give it a go and see if I can work this tricky foot controller. Here we go. All right, I didn't do horrible. I didn't do horrible. I did fairly well. Yeah, really a good-looking stitch on this Italian leather. We'll take a closer look at that and see what you think. See what you think. And I do have the power setting on this machine on high right now, so I'm able to get through this leather with even greater ease. Let's see. I think before I show this to you, I think we might do one more stitch going down. Let me get this set back up again. We'll buzz down with a 3-point zigzag. I'm kind of crooked a little bit, but I'm going to leave it alone. So if I want to switch over to a 3-point zigzag, I'll see if I can adjust the camera a little bit. If I want to move over to a 3-point zigzag, I've got to change our stitch setting on here, obviously. So right now we're on a straight and a zigzag. See if I can move all the way over. Right now we're on a straight zigzag. So I'm going to give it one click over. That's it. Now we're on the 3-point zigzag. And whenever you change a stitch selector, always make sure that your needle is clear of the material. You want to make sure your needle is clear of the material. So now we're on straight zigzag, or now we're on 3-point zigzag, excuse me. And now we have to decide about the stitch width and the stitch length. So I'm going to adjust our stitch width over here to, well, let's see. I think we'll go right around 2.5. Set that on 2.5. And then our stitch length down here, I'm going to shorten that up quite a bit to about 1.5, right about to there. So we've got our 3-point zigzag set up. We've set our stitch width at about 2.5. We've got our stitch length at about 1.5. Let's see what this looks like when we lay it down in this Italian leather. All right. And you can already get a glimpse of that stitching. Beautiful, beautiful top stitch. If you were doing some sort of a product for sale, maybe doing a bag or a wallet or something like that, you really got some good looking stitching down on that material. All right, let's get that take up arm all the way up. And now we're going to try that 3-point zigzag on this Italian leather and see what we think, okay? All right, I'm going to give it a little bit of extra gas. I started out kind of light the last time and we had almost a stall. So here we go, 3-point zigzag on Italian leather. Here we go. These feed dogs, I explained that the feed dogs on this Japanese model are the diamond or pyramid style feed dogs. You notice I took my hand completely off of the material and it continued to feed that material spot on. That leather wasn't pivoting or deviating in any way. And that's why people love this style of pyramid or diamond style feed dog. Is it really keeps the alignment of that material beautiful, even if you take your hands off of it. Kind of like when we're driving down the road and we want to check our front end alignment and we'll take our hands off of the wheel to see if the wheel pulls left or right. On this machine, you can all but take your hands off of the material and it keeps that material just spot on. So the alignment, because of the feed dog design on this machine, is really quite amazing. I think it's absolutely quite amazing. All right, let me swing this around. We'll take a look at this one as well. Yeah, good looking stitching. Very good looking stitching. And the only thing with this recessed design for this take-up spring is there's no way to adjust this take-up spring like on some of the models I've shown you where you can loosen that little screw and you can pivot the range of motion on the take-up spring. This is pretty much preset. It's a preset. You can't change it. And so on some of the materials, we're going to see that we might have to do a little bit of a fine adjustment on the tension to maintain the integrity of that stitch, just because we don't have as much control over the alignment factor of that take up or that check spring. All right, let's take a look at this Italian leather that Shirley picked out. and we'll see what we think of it. We did a straight stitch. We did a 3-point zigzag. We'll be checking out the lock stitching as well on the back of the material. I can already see, because this 3-point zigzag has a lot of needle swing and multiple needle strikes because of the pattern design, that if we were going to be doing a ton of 3-point zigzags on Italian leather, we would want to bump up our upper tension a little bit to get better clarity of stitch. You'll see what I mean when we look at it. You'll see what I mean. So let's take a look at this stitching now. And let me see, I'll get it lined up right about there. And I did change my camera settings a little bit. I hope I did the right thing, and they turn out real well. So there's our top stitching. There's our first glimpse of it. All I can say is, wow, amazing. Some beautiful clarity of stitch and presentation of stitch. Let's go across and look at them. Italian leather is not an easy leather to maintain the integrity of stitch with. And I'll tell you one thing, boy, oh boy, did we nail it. Did we ever nail it? Let's look at it like this as well. Folks, that is some absolute page 34 plus top stitching. And also notice the needle alignment as well. But you know what? We shouldn't be overly impressed because it got a lot of workshop magic. And also, we're using a leather needle by Schmetz, aren't we? We've got a leather needle by Schmetz, so it's able to really slice through this Italian leather and lay down some stitching that is absolutely brag-worthy. Absolutely brag-worthy. Let's take a look at it like this again, going all the way up. I got a little bit ambitious and I got a little bit too close to the camera, and it's like, I'm going to go out of focus now. Let's try it like this again. There we go. Now I'll slowly rotate it. And see if we can go back and forth to look at this one more time. Folks, that is exactly what we want to see. Now, the only takeaway on this is we've got an incredibly poppy straight stitch and 3-point zigzag, but it's a little bit too poppy. And you'll see what I mean when we flip it over and look at the lock stitching. We've lost a little bit of that clarity of stitch because our upper tension was not pulling up hard enough. Let's take a look at that now. And it certainly is a good looking stitch, but it could always be better, right? It could always be better. Let's get over there and take a look at this now. You can see a little bit of the greatness of that 3-point zigzag trying to pop through, but it was lacking just a little bit of pull-up factor because that upper tension was not pulling up quite hard enough. Not quite hard enough. Same thing on our straight stitch. It's a good-looking straight stitch. We're not seeing the knot, but the tightness of that stitch could be better, couldn't it? It could have just a little bit better clarity of stitch, but still, it's quite a good looking stitch. We'll look at it like this as well. So the simple fix on this, we can look at it like this also, and you can get a better idea of how close we were when you look at that straight stitching, how close we were to nailing that lock stitch. You can see the formation of that straight stitch is quite good, but it's just a little bit shy of the greatness factor that we look for, isn't it? Just a little bit shy. Yeah, look at it like this as well. So if we want to get a balance, what we would do again with this Italian leather is we would increase that upper tension. We would bump it up probably about 1 to 1.5 points. And then we would get a stitch that was more in the likeness of this. It has that poppiness factor that we admire. Instead of this, where we got the beginnings of it, but it's lacking it just a tiny little bit. So since we might sew now 2 layers of that Italian leather. I'm going to go ahead and increase our upper tension a little bit right now. Right now, we're only at about probably about 3.5, only about 3.5. And you can see on this Janome made model 742, the sweet spot that they're saying for most sewing is going to be between 3 and 5. We're used to having a setting much higher than that. But you can see on this upper tension, it's giving us a sweet spot zone of 3 to 5. So we're really pretty much in the zone right now. But because of the Italian leather being a little bit harder to get through, a little bit more dense, I'm going to bump it up just a tiny little bit. And hopefully we don't take away from that top stitch too much. Just go up a little bit. Okay. So now let's continue with the Italian leather and go 2 layers. 2 layers is going to look something like this. That is a thick sew off. It's probably going to be the equivalent of around 7 to 8 ounces of leather. 7 to 8 ounces of leather. So we're going to see if this Japanese Janome made machine is able to get through and lay down some good looking stitching on these 2 layers of Italian leather. I'm also going to give us a little bit of an edge and bump this up even higher. Bump that presser foot pressure up even further down to give us a little bit better feed with these 2 layers of Italian style leather. Okay. So I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit more. I'm also going to get a quick drink of soda. My throat is really, really dry today, and see if we can keep Scott's voice intact temporarily, and then we'll jump into the rest of this. All right, we'll get back into it in just a second. I'm just answering a quick text message. All right, I'm back. That was kind of a rock and roll style, wasn't it? So let's do these 2 layers of Italian leather now and see how we do. I'm going to adjust it back and see if we can lay down another straight stitch. We bumped up our upper tension just a little bit of trying to get through these thick layers of Italian leather. And then we're also going to switch now from a 3-point zigzag to a standard zigzag. So I'm going to bring this back over here. And again, whenever you're adjusting your pattern selector, make sure that you have that needle clear of the material so that you don't bend that needle. We don't want to bend the needle. And if you joined us a little bit late, the needle we're sewing with again today is a Schmetz 9014 leather needle. So we're going to be using a leather needle against other materials as well that traditionally are not really accepting of a leather needle because of the anatomy of that needle being very different than say a universal needle or a more standard type 15x1 needle. So we've got ourselves set back on a zigzag. Let's see, probably going to do about 3 on the zigzag width. We'll go about 2 on the length. So we'll lay down a zigzag first on this, and then we'll see if we can maybe move over to one of the more complex stitches, maybe an overlock stitch or a feather stitch, and see how this machine can handle that through all of this leather. It's a little bit of a gamble, but I'm willing to try it. So let's do the zigzag first, and then we'll see if we want to be ambitious and try a more complex stitch through all of this Italian leather. Okay? All right, take-up arm is up. Let's jump into this. And I also want you to listen to this machine as well. If you saw the reel that I posted on Facebook, you'll know that this machine was really clunky and really loud when it first came to the workshop. Now I think it's ridiculously quiet, almost whisper quiet. So let's give us a go and see what you think. I don't know if I'm going to need to give it a hand start or not, but I will be ready just in case. All right, here we go. 2 layers of Italian leather. No hand start, no hand start at all. A lot of power in this model 742. Lot of power and a beautiful zigzag as well. I'm glad I didn't go any wider. I didn't want to go any wider than this just because of that tension factor. Wanted to see if we could maintain good integrity of the tension, and it looks like we did. Looks like we did an excellent job of maintaining integrity with the top stitching and also the lock stitching. We'll take a closer look at this, and then we're going to lay down another stitch on this material, these 2 layers of Italian leather. See if we can lay down a more complex tri-motion stitch. We've got the presser foot pressure. We've got the proper needle. I think we can pull it off. But for right now, we'll just take a quick look at this stitching. There's our top stitching. Absolutely bang on. Absolutely the way we want to see it. And our lock stitching, exactly the same. Exactly the same quality of stitching through these 2 layers of Italian leather. Gorgeous lock stitch, gorgeous top stitch as well. Really, really spectacular. And you can look at the thickness from the side. We're looking at probably about 6 to 7 ounces at least of leather. So not a light sew off at all. Now we're going to move over to a tri-motion stitch. See if we can pull this one off. Tri-motion stitching on leather like this, 2 layers of it, is really kind of a gamble. It's a little bit of a gamble. So I don't know what we're going to get. We might get, the agony of defeat. We might get victory. I have no idea. Well, let's give it a go and see. So we've got a blind hem. We could also do a blind hem if I've got enough room. Let me see if I've got enough room to do this. Move this over just a little bit further. Okay, got that positioned pretty well. Maybe we'll do a blind hem because we don't do blind hems very often. I'm going to move this one more click over to our blind hem stitch setting. Then we've got to decide on the width. Let's see here. I think I'll leave it right on 3. Stitch length, I think we'll go just a little bit shorter, about 1.5. Yeah, right about there. Okay, let's give this a try. We'll lay down a blind hem stitch on this Italian leather, and then we're going to move into trying to do a tri-motion stitch on this leather as well. Let's see here. Get that right. Okay, first of all, blind hem, and then we'll see if we can pull off a tri-motion stitch. Trying to get that foot controller set up again. There we go. I think I got it. Okay, blind hem first, and then we'll move into that tri-motion. Here we go. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Pull this up. Yeah. I'm liking this. Beautiful stitching, beautiful stitching. I didn't know how it would do with this, with those little joining points like we talk about all the time. Those little joining points can be a little bit tricky on this blind hem, but it looks like we did an excellent job of maintaining stitch quality and stitch integrity. Bring this thread back. We'll take an initial look at this, and then we're going to try to move into a tri-motion stitch with this Italian leather. A little bit nervous about that, but I think we may be able to pull it off. All right, let's take a look at this. I got to get it reasonably level. A little bit closer. Yeah, I like the presentation of that stitch very much. I like the presentation of that stitch very much. And we could still get a little bit more clarity on those joining straight stitch points that bridge each of those, that bridge each one of those joining points, right? Let's look at it like this also. And I agree with Alex. I love the way this white Coats and Clark dual duty thread shows up on this black Italian leather, don't you? Really, really quite lovely. Let's take a look at this. Kind of going up. Yeah. So all in all, I think we've got, oh, if I got it upside down. All in all, I think we did a really, really good job through these 2 layers of Italian leather. Lay down a zigzag, lay down a blind hem stitch, and now we're going to look at that lock stitching, see how we did with that. But look at it, look at that from the end. That is a heavy sew off. And it looks like we bumped up our upper tension a little bit. We bumped up our upper tension, and that may have been a mistake because we've got a gorgeous looking lock stitch on the bottom of the Italian leather, but we could have had a little bit more poppiness on that top stitching. So I think I made a mistake maybe in adjusting the upper tension up, anticipating we would have issues when we ended up taking a little bit away from that that top stitching. Let's look at this one and go across and see what you think. See how poppy that those joining points are on that blind hem stitch? Incredibly poppy. We didn't quite have that level of poppiness on that top stitching. We didn't quite have that level of poppiness on that top stitching. So sometimes adjusting prematurely, a tension adjustment can bring great results. Sometimes it can detract a little bit. I think we detracted a little bit here. We got a great lock stitch, a fabulous lock stitch, but I think we may have taken just a little bit away from that top stitching, just a little bit, not much. Beautiful stitching, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stitching. So this again is our lock stitching, some gorgeous, gorgeous stitch quality, stitch presentation, and our top stitching, which is really good too, but you can see certain points, like right in here, certain points right there where we didn't quite have the clarity of stitching that we could have had. We turn it from the side and it's a little bit weak, and that's because the upper tension was pulling a little bit too hard. But we know exactly what to do to fix it, don't we? We know exactly what to do. So I'm going to put this back underneath the presser foot, and then we'll jump into a tri-motion stitch. Again, it's a little bit of a gamble on this much Italian leather, but we're going to give it a try nonetheless. And I think the tri-motion stitch that we will try is going to be a straight stitch stretch, a straight stretch stitch. I kind of fumbled over my words there a little bit. Well, we've gotten some great results so far on here. Now we're going to see if we can add a tri-motion stitch and see what happens. Let's see what happens. So we're going to change our stitch setting into this region now. Just one click over to this stitch. It's basically, I call it a pearlized straight stitch, and you'll see why. It's kind of a pearlized straight stitch. Looks like I have to go all the way around. Okay, so I've got this stretch straight stitch on now. And now it's going to give me a default automatically on the stitch length. I've got to go to the longest setting. I've got to go to the longest setting. And that's because when you're using a tri-motion type stitch, it's going to have to manipulate those feed dogs to move the material back and forth. It's not just a needle swing factor. It's the feed dogs concurrently moving that material back and forth to generate that stitch pattern. So we've got to give it the most space to work with. So we turned our stitch length all the way up. And now we've got to also look at our stitch width factor. Let's see here. This is going to be a stretch straight stitch. So we're not going to go absolute max. We're going to go right around to 4, I think, on the stitch width. right around 4. Well, maybe not. Let's go to the max. Give it a little bit more space to work with. Give it a little bit more space to work with. So we're going to go 5. We're going to go 4, which is the max setting. And again, they've got it colorized blue. I think you can kind of see that. Let's see if I can light it up with the, they've got it colorized blue. You can kind of see that right there. So that you know right away on these stitches that are tri-motion, we need the most length and the most width that we can possibly generate. Also, when you're setting up for a tri-motion stitch, you want to offset that material just a little bit because it's going to be on initial launch, it's going to be pulling that material backwards. It's going to be using that reverse function to pull that material backwards. So if you're too close to the edge, you're going to be sewing off the material. So I'm going to offset it just a little bit. There we go. I think that's enough. And now we're going to try this tri-motion straight stretch stitch. Straight stretch stitch. Boy, is that a mouthful. All right, I'm going to check my settings. Looks like we're good to go. All right, here we go. This is what I call a pearlized straight stitch. See what you think of it. Here we go. All right, we're going to stop right there. Yeah, that's quite lovely. Quite lovely. We'll see how we did on the lock stitch. Yeah, that's also really, really nice. And this is a real tricky stitch to do through this much leather because it has to overlay that stitch so many times. But I think we got a really, really good result. Let me give that a clip, and then we'll take a look at this stretch straight stitch, or I call it kind of a pearlized stitch, and I think it really is quite lovely. All right, this is our top stitching. Almost got it. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's really a beautiful stitch, isn't it? You can see the density of it. The density of it is intense, isn't it? All right, let's try it like this also. I think we'll be able to see it a little bit better this way, maybe. All right, I'm going to keep my hand really still. Camera will focus on that. You can see how many overlays of that stretch straight stitch has to occur to give it that density of stitch. It's got to be hitting it at least 4 times. At least 4 times. But it's moving so fast I can't count it. Can't count it. I really love this stitch, though. It's a beautiful stretch stitch, and it just presents incredibly well, doesn't it? It really presents incredibly well. Very, very nice. So that's our top stitching. Kind of show it to you like this as well. That's our top stitching. And now we're going to flip it over and look at our lock stitching. And look at down the line here. Look at the thickness of what we just sewed through using a tri-motion stitch. You have no idea the engineering that is built into this through the cam stack to generate this stitch and the complexity of the needle movements along with the feed dog movements as well to generate a stitch like this. And yet this machine that belongs to Darlene did just a spectacular job. A spectacular job. I'll see if I can get a little bit closer here. Kind of going across. There we go. Such a beautiful stitch pattern. Such a beautiful stitch pattern. And our tension balance was absolutely spot on. Our tension balance was absolutely as it should be. Absolutely as it should be. Kind of go like this as well. Look at this lock stitching. A lot of complexity in that stitch. A lot of complexity. All right, I'm going to try to hold it still. There's our lock stitching on all three of these stitches that Shirley wanted to see on this Italian leather. And we tried some stitching initially on a single layer, and then we bumped it all the way up to 2 layers of Italian leather, which is about 6 to 8 ounces of leather. And we laid down a beautiful zigzag, a beautiful blind hem, and then also this stretch straight stitch that I call kind of a pearlized straight stitch. It's just a lovely, lovely stitch. Same thing on our top stitching, some beautiful outcomes there as well on all three of these. The only thing we noted is that on the joining points on that blind hem, we could certainly do with a little bit of a tension adjustment to give even a little bit more clarity of that stitching. But all in all, some beautiful, beautiful outcomes on this Italian leather, which again is a real tricky leather to sew. So I'm going to throw this to the back and let's jump into some of these other sew offs as well on Darlene's Janome made model 742. Model 742. Yeah, we'll kind of look at the machine a little bit, and also I'll show you the material we have left. We got some good old-fashioned cotton. We've got cotton with quilt batting. We've got regular cotton. We've got cotton with a little bit of stiffener. And I thought about going to the cotton with a stiffener and going down all the stitches, straight, zigzag, 3-point zigzag, overlock stitch, feather stitch, straight stitch, blind hem stitch, and then being able to see all the stitches minus the buttonhole, minus the buttonhole on this beautiful kind of a cranberry red 100% cotton material. So I'm kind of leaning this way, but I want your input as well. And again, remember, we're going to be sewing this cotton material with a leather needle, not necessarily the best setup, but we're going to give it a go. So we have all these cotton options. We've got this satin option as well with a stiffener, this beautiful satin that Emma provided from Florida. We've got some of this fake fleece material. That's 100% polyester, 2 layers of that we can sew with one of these stitches. We got this vinyl material. I absolutely always cringe a little bit with vinyl because vinyl is notorious for causing skip stitching and distortion of stitching, but I always pull it out anyway because otherwise we really wouldn't be putting this machine truly to the test. We'd be doing window dressing like a lot of the YouTube channels where they pick out a real simple material to sew off on and they consider it done. We don't operate that way at Cow Country. We really push the machines and we open ourselves up for the risk of a challenge or failure with materials like this vinyl. This vinyl is real tricky stuff. And then we got our Amazon packing parchment paper that we'll probably do near the end, but I do have that as well. 14 layers of that. And we've got, what else do we have? We have this outdoor material as well. That's some sort of I don't know what this stuff is. It may be some sort of a vinyl or an upholstery or who knows what it is, but it's designed for heavy duty outdoor applications. And then we've got our denim, and we also have our canvas type material as well. Canvas also is a tricky material to sew. Very, 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 very tricky stuff. Yeah, Alex has a Bernina as well. Alex has a Bernina, and it loves this Coates & Clark dual duty XP thread. And Alex was the first one to let us know that Joann's out in California was offering a crazy deal. Absolutely insane. I got excited when you bought 3 and you got 2 free. And Alex out in California was the first one to say, Scott, guess what? Guess what Joann's is doing out here in California? They're giving an option of buying 3 and getting 3 free. How crazy is that? And that was even before the President's Day sale. The President's Day sale, where Joann's here in the Midwest and other parts of the country finally caught up with California and said, okay, all right, all right, all right, all right. We'll give you 3 free if you buy 3. So California was really the one that blazed the trail for that crazy deal of buy 3, get 3. Absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. So I don't know if anybody has any input. Otherwise, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot over to this 100% cotton, this cranberry stuff, and see if we can go through all the stitches that this model 742 can do. All the stitches that this 742 can do, and we'll have a little bit of fun. All right, so we're going to start with a straight stitch. So now we got to adjust our machine back, don't we? Got to adjust our machine back. Right now we're on a tri-motion stitch. We've got to go back to our default straight zigzag. So let's do that. Our needle is clear of the material. Got to go back this way. So we're set back on our zigzag straight stitch default. Now we need to set our stitch length over to the M setting, Remember, we're going to adjust this back over to the M setting so we have a default of a straight stitch. Now we need to decide how long we're going to make that straight stitch. Right now we're set at the absolute max. We could stay with the absolute max, or I can adjust it back just a tiny little bit, just a little bit. All right, so let's do a straight stitch, and then without going back and forth, changing the settings on the machine, I'm going to go through every single stitch minus the buttonhole that this model 742 made in Japan by Janome can do. And then we'll be able to look at all the stitches across this beautiful cranberry colored 100% cotton and really gain an appreciation for the scope of stitches that this machine can do, right? Yeah, let's be impressed and just check them out, right? Okay, let me get our take-up arm all the way up. We'll lay down a straight stitch, then we'll go to a zigzag, then we'll go through the whole litany of other stitches that this machine can do. All right, a quick little swig of Diet Coke. All right, here we go. Straight stitching, and then we'll kind of go through all the stitch options. Here we go. All right, there's our straight stitch. Now let's move to a zigzag. And also I'm noticing, I'm going to back off our upper tension just a little bit. Yep, we got to back it off a little bit. Okay, we'll try that. Remember, as you're changing through a wide field of materials, it's going to have an impact on how your tension responds to that material. So you have to kind of look at it and then make a decision whether or not you're going to make any adjustments. So I just made a soft adjustment to this upper tension. Now we're going to move into a zigzag. And remember, with a zigzag, we're going to be bridging that gap, almost like stretching the supports of a bridge. We're going to be stretching the supports of a bridge. So I had adjusted this down, but now I might want to consider adjusting it back up just a little bit to give a little bit more boost to those bridging points on the zigzag. Since we're going to be going ultra wide, I'm going to go ahead and bump it back up again. Bump it up to right about there. I think that hopefully will be enough. So now we've got our stitch selector already on zigzag. Don't have to do a thing with that, but we have to go over here, and then we have to go ultra wide. I bumped it all the way to 5 on there, all the way to 5. I don't know if you can see that with the lighting or not. There we go. We're all the way on 5. Okay. And then our stitch length, I'm also going to go fairly long on that also. go just a little bit shy of the full length. So let's lay down a zigzag on this 100% cotton now. And then we will go through all the other stitch options. I'll do that rather rapidly. All right, zigzag now. Here we go. Yeah, beautiful zigzagging. Very nice. I'm glad I bumped this up a little bit to accommodate that. Glad I bumped that up. All right, now let's do a blind hem. Let's do a blind hem now. And I'll make a couple adjustments on that. I like a certain look of the blind hem. So I kind of adjust the stitch width and the stitch length accordingly, make it a little bit more compact, a little bit better defined. Okay, so straight and zigzag. Now we'll go to a blind hem. There we go. Give it one more click. One more click counterclockwise. Now we're on the blind hem, but now I'm going to make some adjustments over here. I'm going to make that not quite as wide. I'm going to go to right about 3. And I'm going to adjust our stitch length way down to about 1.5. All right, now let's do this blind hem, and then we'll jump into some of these other stitch options that we have as well. See, I'm already crooked. I was so crooked, but I'm trying to start out at least straight. We'll see. All right, we're going to do a blind hem now. I'm just going to check my settings. Looks like our settings are good to go. Here we go with a blind hem now. I might actually go even a little bit shorter. Let me just adjust that a little bit more. All right, here we go. Yeah. My camera angle is not too great. Let's see if we can get it right over there. There we go. And I didn't talk about the alignment of the needle. Most of you would already figure this out, considering the location of the bobbin case being in the front of the machine. But the flat side of the needle on this Japanese Janome-made model 742, the flat side is going to go to the rear, which tells us on this rotary hook system, as this rotary hook system is turning like this, that hook is going to be on the rear side of the needle to pass through that scarf just at the right time to grab that thread to complete the stitch process. It really is a critical thing to get that timing right. Susie and I recently made a house call out to another Japanese machine, but it was an industrial machine made by Juki. And I explained to Susie as I was making adjustments on that industrial machine in the customer's home, why I was adjusting the hook the way I was based on the sewing style and needs of the customer, and also based on setting it up for the thread that was on the machine as well, which had a little bit heavier of a drape factor. And so we had to make a number of adjustments to the hook to accommodate the sewing style of the customer and also their setup. If you don't take that into account when you're adjusting the timing on a machine, you are going to have issues with skip stitching intermittently, depending on the rate of the speed the customer is sewing and other factors. So I really tried to take that into account as I was adjusting that Juki, and the customer was happy, very, very happy, very, very happy. All right, let's do some other stitching on this Japanese machine. So now we're going to move into the tri-motion stitches over here, the bluish ones. And I've got to turn this all the way back clockwise now to get back to that point. And I think what we'll do first, it looks like it came up first on here. We'll do this this overlock stitch. We're going to do the overlock stitch first. Then we're going to do the feather stitch. And then finally, we're going to do that pearlized straight stretch stitch last. and then we'll be able to look at the full scope of the stitching that this Model 742 can do. This Model 742. Yeah, let's do that. Now, remember, we have to adjust this all the way to the max to accommodate that tri-motion. So we're going to take our stitch length and go all the way to the max. And we're also going to go max on the stitch width as well to give plenty of room for that, that cam to generate this tri-motion stitch and have the space to do it in. The space to do it in. And I'm going to see if I can bring the camera down to the needle. I'll show you the stitching we've already done. Bring the camera down to the needle so you can see that action again of the machine generating that stitch. I think it's kind of cool. All right. Checking our settings. Our settings look like they're spot on. So I'm going to grab that balance wheel, bring that take-up arm all the way up. See that? There we go. And then I'm going to hold the camera. I'm going to hold the camera as best as I can and launch with this tri-motion overlock stitch so you can see the action of the machine. All right, here we go. I think I've got it. I think I pretty much have it. Here we go. Oh, you know what? Yeah, there we go. And if you look at that overlock stitch real carefully as it's showing, it's using other stitch features to accomplish that. It's using other stitch features to accomplish that overlock, including part of a blind hem movement, isn't it? Using part of a blind hem movement to generate this overlock. Beautiful overlock. That's our lock stitching on the back. You can kind of see that right there. Some lovely, lovely overlock stitching. And our top stitching as well. It looks like our top stitching is a little bit more predominant. So I don't know. We might have to look at a little bit more of an adjustment on our upper tension. I might just go up just a tiny hair more. So we're up on 4 right now. And again, on this Janome made white 742, the sweet spot that Janome is telling us for most stitching is going to be between 3 and 5. You can kind of see that right there. Between 3 and 5. Go like this maybe. So we're right in the zone. We're right in the zone right now on the sweet spot that Janome considers that we should be in for most of our stitching. All right, let's now move to that feather stitch. We're going to move to that feather stitch now. And does anyone know what would you generally use a feather stitch for in sewing applications? The feather stitch is a very unique stitch. What would we use a stitch like that for? Any of you sewists out there that have used it before, what have you used it for? What is its application most commonly for? Overlock is pretty evident what we would use overlock stitching for. I think for the most part, the overlock stitching. But what would we use the feather stitching for? The feather stitch option that's on this Janome made white Model 742. What is that feather stitch about? Going to get that back into place again. What do we use a feather stitch for? What do we use a feather stitch for? Feather stitch is going to be, I'll show you on the front of the machine. It's going to be this stitch right here. Right there. It almost looks like bird feet, doesn't it? That feather stitch almost looks like bird feet. If you were using a stitch like that, how would you use it on a project? What would you use it for? The feather stitch. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to use a feather stitch now, and then we'll see what you think once you see it. I'll turn that to select the feather stitch. Leave that the same. And we're going to leave that the same as well. So let's try this tri-motion feather stitch. Tri-motion feather stitch. I'm just going to get the camera down there so we can watch the action of the machine. I think that's kind of fun to do that. All right, here we go. The feather stitch. Ha-ha! The feather stitch. All right, I'm going to stop right there. So there's our feather stitch. It almost looks like bird feet, doesn't it? What would you use that for? Has anyone used this stitch before? And what was your application in a project doing a stitch like this? Give you a closer look at it here. Really a nifty stitch, really quite a cool stitch. But how would you use it? How would you use a stitch like that? Yeah, really, really lovely. That's our lock stitching on the back. I pulled the thread a little bit, so I'll just show you. That's our lock stitching. There's our feather stitch right there. There's our overlock stitch. Top stitching. Yeah, kind of a cool little stitch. And again, remember our setup is with a leather needle, a 9014 needle by Schmetz. So leather and cotton are not necessarily the best marriage to make. They're not necessarily going to be the best marriage to make, but yeah, we're giving it a go. See how this machine is able to handle a less than ideal setup. A less than ideal setup. The last stitch I need to lay down is going to be a 3-point zigzag. I almost forgot about it. I almost forgot about the 3-point zigzag. So I'm going to see if I can switch over to the 3-point zigzag now. That should be it right there. All right, so we set our 3-point zigzag. And now I'm going to adjust our stitch width to about 2.5. And our stitch length down to about 1.25, right about there. Yeah, we'll leave it right about there. So let's do this final stitch that this machine is able to do minus the buttonhole. And we'll see what we think of this whole stitch lineup. This whole stitch lineup. All right, here we go. Yeah, interesting. And see, as you switch stitches, now we've got this 3-point zigzag. I made it fairly narrow, but I had bumped up the upper tension to accommodate some of these tri-motion stitches. And now we're just a little bit weak on the definition of that 3-point zigzag. I could even stitch it again and make an adjustment on the upper tension, and then all of a sudden you would see this pop through again. Matter of fact, I think we'll do that. And then we'll look at the two side by side, just so you can see the impact of the tension factor and how easy it is to make an adjustment to get that stitch just the way you want it, just the way that you want it. Yeah. Actually, now that I'm looking at it more closely, it looks like yeah, I would say that's probably close enough. We'll look at this and and just know that we could adjust it further. But I think right now we'll leave it the way it is. It's in a pretty good formation and pretty good look and presentation. So let's look at all these stitches now. I'm going to kind of hold the camera like this. This again is 100% cotton, 100% cotton with just a real thin layer of stiffener. So we went through a wide scope of stitching. And the only thing I noticed is that because we're using a leather needle, and again, the anatomy of that needle isn't the best choice for cotton because of the point and the shaft design and the width of the scarf, etc. Our stitching integrity was good overall, but we did have just a little bit of an anomaly on this end of the feather stitch. If you look at that feather stitch on this end over here, you can see we have a little bit of a bridge and point gap where the pattern wasn't executed exactly right. And that was a product of the needle that we're using with the cotton and the polyester thread. So all in all, really quite good. Let me angle it a little bit more. All in all, quite good, but not exactly spot on. Not exactly spot on. Look at it like this as well. So some really good top stitching there. All in all, I would say the machine did an excellent job of executing some of these more complex stitches, especially the tri-motion ones, in view of our setup. Now, if we turn it over, take a look at that lock stitching. And I think the lock stitching is equally impressive. It looks a little bit more prominent, which means that in certain instances, especially on that straight stitching where we were going incredibly long, we could have adjusted that upper tension back just a little bit to give us a more pronounced top stitch. You can see our stitching here for the lock stitch on the straight stitch is really quite exceptional. Here it's a little bit weaker. It still is quite good, but it's just a little bit weaker. Just a tiny little bit weaker. But for most sewists, this model 742 is going to give you enough choices with patterns that you'll be able to handle most any project with this selection of patterns. Really, really quite wide and expansive, isn't it? So I'm going to set this to the side as well. So far, we've done Italian leather. If you joined us a little bit late, we've done Italian leather. Now we've done cotton with a stiffener. And now we're going to move into some of the other sew-offs as well. Some of the other pattern choices. So if anyone wants to give input is always welcome. I love it. We've got more cotton. We've got cotton with a quilt batting. We've got straight up cotton that I'm planning on doing about 8 layers of. We've got this parchment paper by Amazon. We've got this vinyl. We've got this really cool fake fleece material that's 100% polyester. Satin material, which is the ultra light side of things. I may set that over there if there's no input. I may do that satin next. Now we got some of this outdoor material that could be a little bit tricky. We got some denim, and then we also have some canvas as well. We got some canvas and denim also. So a lot of material choices to pick from. I always do that intentionally. I do that intentionally so that we can really see the full capacity and the scope of this machine, getting the job done. That's really what we're aiming for. We want to see and broaden our horizons as far as what this machine is capable of sewing on. A wide field of materials, even with a less than ideal setup. That's always our goal, is to really push that machine to the max. So if anyone has any input, otherwise I'm going to sew on this satin next. I'm going to put this satin to use, which means we'll be lightening up that presser foot pressure, won't we? We're going to be lightening that presser foot pressure up considerably to accommodate this light light sew off. So I'm going to release our presser foot pressure, and I'm going to push it back down into a little bit of a lighter range right about here. You can see before we were all the way down here. So now we're lightening this up considerably. Right about, I think about right about there should be pretty close to the mark. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with that. And the last stitch we did was the 3-point zigzag. So I think we'll do that again, but I'm going to shorten it up even a little bit more. Maybe give it a little bit more width. So we'll lay down the 3-point zigzag on this satin, and then maybe we'll try one of the tri-motion stitches on this satin. I think that would be super cool, don't you? Let's try that. All right, so a 3-point zigzag. I've got to get my take-up arm in the right spot. You can see it's all the way down here right now. Got to bring that all the way up. There we go. There we go. So let's get this satin going and see what we think of the satin material. Satin is really quite a lovely material. We'll see how it presents with this sew off. Okay. All right, here we go. Yeah, a little bit further. There we go. Yeah, I'm going to check our tension balance. Looks like it's really, really quite good. I'm going to back this off just a little bit. So again, if you're brand new to sewing, and I look at this stitching and I right away say, I'm going to back off that upper tension, you might be saying, well, why are you doing that? Why are you backing off the upper tension after just quickly looking at the stitch and making a quick assessment? It's because as I look at the stitching and I look at the balance and I look at the definition on the back of the material, the lock stitching, and I look at the top stitching, I can tell right away in looking at it how balanced that stitching is. I noticed it was just a little bit weak on this top stitching, so I decreased the upper tension so that that bobbin case can pull down a little bit harder. Remember, it's a tug of war. This is pulling up to define the bottom of the stitching, and the bobbin case down here is pulling down to define the top stitching, okay? So if you remember that simple concept of tug of war, this is pulling up, this is pulling down, you'll be able to adjust your tension no matter what your setup is and no matter what type of material you're sewing. It just takes a little tweaking, doesn't it? And you can have success. It doesn't have to be a mystery. A lot of people think that when it comes to tension that it's a mystery, and it's just one of those things that if you get lucky, then you get lucky and you get great stitching. If you don't, then you're going to get stitching that's subpar. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be a lot more scientific in making those subtle adjustments between the bobbin case and the upper tension to get the result that you want, right? We always want to get the result that we want. All right, so we're back to this again. I noticed on the back of the material there was only a little subtle puckering, just a little bit of puckering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this back even a little bit further. We can see where we're set right now around the mid-range. I'm going to make it even just a little bit lighter, right about there, I think. So you can see how I'm not as far down as I was before to lighten the touch of that presser foot against this very delicate satin material. All right, so now we're going to move to another stitch selection. Let's see. We could do a blind hem since we're in this region right now. We'll do a blind hem. I'm going to make a couple of adjustments here. Yeah, I'll leave that the way it is. That's perfect. So now let's do a blind hem stitch on this satin material, and then we'll throw a tri-motion stitch at this satin to see how it handles that. See how it handles that. All right, so blind hem. See if we can get down by the action a little bit for fun. Got a nice long sew off we can do. Here we go. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to pull that out and take a look at that. Again, I'm just kind of looking at the general balance of the stitching. I like the balance of the stitching right now, so I'm not going to change anything on the tension. Now we're going to move into a tri-motion stitch and see how this machine handles that. Because we're dealing with a tri-motion stitch, even though we're dealing with a light satin, like this, I am going to increase the presser foot pressure just slightly to accommodate the movement of those feed dogs so that this material, being a little bit slippery, doesn't slip underneath the presser foot. We've got to have enough pressure that hopefully we don't cause excessive puckering or bunching on the back. We've got a real good balance right now, but we have to accommodate for that tri-motion of manipulating that material back and forth very rapidly. So we've got to bump this up a little bit higher than we are right now, taking into account the tri-motion of that. I'm going to go right about to there. I think that'll be enough. We're not going to go max, just brought it down just a little bit to accommodate for those feed dogs manipulating this material rather rapidly. And we'll see if we can have success with tri-motion on this satin, because satin would be a beautiful material to lay a tri-motion stitch down on, don't you think? We'll get that into position. Right about there. Maybe we'll try that overlock stitch. We'll see if we can adjust this to overlock stitch. So we know we're going to have to turn this the opposite way. I'm going to go all the way around this way back to that overlock stitch. I think I've got that in the right position. And now I've got to adjust my stitch length all the way to the max. Because again, with that tri-motion, it needs the space to execute that feed dog movement. So we got to give it plenty of space to stretch its arms out. And we'll also have to give it extra space over here. Good. Okay, so let's try an overlock now on this satin material. And I'll try to get down to the feed dogs so you can see how this machine is manipulating this delicate satin over the feed dogs and under that presser foot. You can already see we got some beautiful stitching to start with. Let's see how we do on this overlock stitch, okay? All right, here we go. Look at that material getting moved back and forth very rapidly. All right, we're going to stop right there. Yeah, quite lovely, quite lovely. Wow. Very, very lovely stitch. I could certainly do another tri-motion stitch on this as well, like the feather stitch or the straight stretch stitch, which I call the pearl eye stitch. But I think we've tested this satin adequately to see that we're able to execute a very complex tri-motion stitch on this very, very light material. Let's look at this will be our top stitching here, and then we'll look at the lock stitching afterwards. Let's take a look at this. Yep, that's top stitch. Just double, triple checking. All right, trying to get it straight. Yeah, there we go. Even with that tri-motion stitch, we maintain some beautiful, beautiful integrity of stitch using a leather needle, a leather needle on a delicate satin, and we were still able to pull it off with that tri-motion stitch. Let's look at it like this as well. Let's look at it like this. Get a real clear view of the clarity of that stitching. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. That's our top stitching. Very, very nice. Very nice. That stuff is slippery. It's slipping out of my hand as I'm holding it. With a leather needle, that is absolutely crazy. So gorgeous, gorgeous top stitching. I'll just kind of show it to you like this. We're going to turn it over and look at that lock stitching now. Beautiful lock stitching as well. Really a lot of clarity of the stitch. If you're sewing satin like this, you really should be using an embroidery style needle like a 7511, or perhaps even a little bit smaller than that. You wouldn't be using a 9014 leather needle. And yet, because of the machine functioning absolutely spot on, it's executing a gorgeous stitch, even using a less than ideal setup. A huge leather needle to sew a stitch of this complexity. See if we can look at it like this as well. That's a gorgeous lock stitch, folks. Gorgeous, gorgeous lock stitch. Even the joining points on that blind hem are just absolutely spectacular. Great clarity on that 3-point zigzag. Great clarity on that overlock stitch as well. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. That's our lock stitching right there. Come on a little bit further. There's our lock stitching. Spectacular. And our top stitching as well. And again, remember, we're using a really kind of a medium range needle for such a delicate material. It's kind of like using a sledgehammer to tap in a nail. It's kind of like using a sledgehammer to tap in a nail. And yet this model 742 that was made by Janome is doing a fabulous job of managing a less than ideal setup, laying down stitching like that and stitching like this as well. So we haven't done a huge amount of sewing on this machine yet, and we're already running like 2 hours. So I've got to get moving along, don't I? But we've already done Italian leather. You see our Italian leather right there. 2 layers of that. We've already done our cotton with a stiffener, went through all the stitches that this machine can do. And then we just laid down a beautiful sew off on this satin material as well, showing the light side of what this Japanese Janome made machine can handle. Now we're going to be moving into some other materials and see if we can continue to maintain the standard of sewing with this great white model 742. Let's see what I've got left. So what I have left is I've got this Amazon packing parchment paper. I've got cotton with a quilt batting, regular cotton, outdoor material, this fake fleece material that's 100% polyester, vinyl, denim, and canvas. I've got this canvas as well. So if anyone has any input on the type of stitch and the type of material, go ahead and voice your desire now. And then, of course, I've got some of this 100% cowhide as well. I've got some of this cowhide material that we'll do on this machine potentially as well. We've already sewn Italian leather, but we can also sew some of this cowhide as well. All right, so we're looking at denim. We're looking at denim. Um, let's see. Yeah, and I don't have a specific stitch that Candido. And by the way, hello to Candido and Rachel. Hey guys, hello out in New York. So let's try some of this denim. Put some of this denim to work. I've got 2 layers of it. Yeah, I think we'll do 4 layers. 4 layers of denim. It's a nice heavy duty sew off. Oh, looks like we have another friend from New York as well. The V Stop. The V Stop. Welcome to the V Stop from the great state of New York. From the great state of New York. Great to have you here. So I'm going to set us up with 4 layers of denim. Get that underneath the presser foot. And I'm going to increase our presser foot pressure to accommodate this heavy denim. Yeah, let's push it down. We almost have it to the max. Again, as you go with a heavier saw off like this, these 4 layers of denim, you want to accommodate for that presser foot pressure by pushing it up, bumping it up. All right, so I got that in position. We got 4 layers of denim. It's probably the equivalent, if you look at it from the side, it's probably about 3 to 5 ounces of denim as far as the thickness. Now, a lot of people would be apprehensive to try to do a tri-motion stitch, but I think we will try that eventually. I'm going to move over to a 3-point zigzag to start, and then we'll move into a tri-motion stitch after that. Make sure your needle is clear of the material. Now we'll make some adjustments on the machine. Our pattern selector, I've got to take it over to the 3-point zigzag. Oops, I went the wrong way. Let's go this way. That's our 3-point zigzag. We're going to adjust our stitch width down. Adjust our stitch length down as well. We want to try to tighten that pattern up a little bit. So yeah, we're right around 1.5 on the stitch length, and we're right around 2.5 on the stitch width. So we should get a nice compact 3-point zigzag stitch. Nice compact. All right, let's give this a go. And I won't take you down to the needle right now because this stitch off is going to go fairly quick. But when we get to that tri-motion stitch, I'll see if I can take the camera down there and show you the action again. I think it's kind of cool to see that. All right, let me just back this up just a little bit. All right, so tri-motion, 4 layers of denim. Let's see how we do. And again, this is for Candido. Candido wanted to see this out of New York. Candido and Rachel, here we go. Those feed dogs really are impressive. Those feed dogs are really, really impressive with how they manage that material. I think so anyway. Very, very impressive. And I'm feeling a pull here. You know what? I think we broke a thread. We did. We broke a thread. We broke the thread. I'll see if I can get real close and show it to you. We actually frayed it right there, going through all of this denim with this leather needle. So that may give us a little cue that this machine would be better served with a denim needle if we're going to be sewing through this much denim, huh? We'd be better served with a denim needle than with a leather needle because it actually frayed our thread. It laid down a beautiful stitch, but it frayed our thread and it broke it. So I've got to rethread the machine now. I'll show you first of all what it did. See that right there? And we're using a Coates and Clark Coates and Clark dual duty XP thread. before the thread broke, it laid down a beautiful 3-point zigzag. There's our top stitching, and there's our lock stitching. Really quite nice. Now I'll work on rethreading the machine again, and we'll see if this repeats again, huh? Then that'll give us a good indication that if we're going to be using denim, we'd be better off with a different style of needle, wouldn't we? All right, let me see if I can get this threaded up quickly enough. All right, bring that back. Just checking my threading as well, making sure we didn't bind anywhere. And you know what? I'll take you through the threading real quick since we're at that point. Let me just get our take-up arm all the way up. So you can see we've got 2 spool pins. We can do twin needle sewing. And as you come off the top from the back of here, as you come off the top, you're going to come through this thread guide right here, which you've got to thread it manually. You can see that. You've got to thread that little hole manually because there is no opening on it. I don't think there's any opening. Now we're going to come over here. Oh, aha. Aha, aha. It's not a compatibility issue. As we're looking at the threading, look at what happened here. Our thread misfed, and it got tangled right there, so it couldn't feed, and it broke the thread, didn't it? We might have some static going on with the air being dry. There we go. I'm going to tighten that back up again, and I'm going to put just a little bit of moisture. So as we look at a problem, we can have an initial feeling of what happened, but what happened is a little bit of static charge fed through here, and it caused that thread to kind of twist a little bit as it was coming through here, and it locked up the thread right there, breaking the thread down at the needle. Hopefully it didn't hurt our needle. I don't think it did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I showed you the last time, and I'm going to spritz just a little bit of moisture on our spool of thread back here so that we can hopefully eliminate that happening again. Hopefully. This is that little bottle that I offered the last time, and Candido was the only one that took me up on it. If someone wants to send me a text message right now and say, I would love to get one of these bottles. They're used for the essential oils. So with essential oils, you can have water in here like I do on this one, or you can have an oil mixture in another one like this. And so you can use this to lubricate your machine, sending out a really, really fine mist to get into all those crevices and cracks that with targeted oiling you might have trouble getting into. But when you use a bottle like this, it makes the mist so fine, it gets into all those little rotation and pivot points on your sewing machine, and it does a brilliant job of providing thorough lubrication very rapidly. So if anybody wants one of these, just send me a text message right now, and I'll mail you one free of charge. Free of charge, just like I'm going to do with Candido and Rachel. But right now I'm going to use the water one to add a little bit of moisture to that thread on the back of the machine. So a little bit of moisture. There we go. Just a little moisture on there. All right. So hopefully we don't have that happen again, huh? I don't think we damaged the needle, but if we have any skip stitch issues, we'll change out that needle. But it looks like we did really well with that 3-point zigzag. So now let's go back to the drawing board. Now that we added a little bit of moisture to that thread, and I'll take you through the rest of the threading on this machine. Yeah. So I got right to this point, and that's where we noticed that thread had basically had a malfunction because of what I believe would be the static factor, and it caused that thread to break down at the needle. But when you come down here with your pressure foot lever in the up position, right now I've got it down, with your pressure foot pressure lever in the up position, you'll then want to take that thread from up top right here, take it down here, come around those discs, and you'll have to draw that thread up so that that will get threaded right in here. There's a little notch right there, so when you bring the thread around, you have to pull that spring, that take-up spring that's recessed, you have to pull that spring up so that that thread gets saddled in that little notch right there. You can see that in the shot. And then you're going to take the thread and you're going to thread the take-up arm from right to left, and then this thread guide, and then this thread guide right there. And then there's two thread guides down here because of the twin needle capabilities of the machine. You can choose either one, but I usually pick the one on the right. So I threaded it through this thread guide on the right, and then you're going to thread the needle from front to back. From front to back, okay? All right, let's try some more sewing now and see if we can avoid another malfunction that very likely was caused by static. Very likely caused by static. I got the heater running in here. The air's a little bit drier. We really haven't had any moisture. And so the result is your thread will pick up that static electricity, and as it's passing through the machine, it touches metal, and then that static electricity becomes even more pronounced. You've got metal here, you've got metal here, you've got metal in there, you got metal here, and it just intensifies that static charge that's being carried through that thread. That's why sometimes your thread will be doing the little curlicue thing, and that's a product of that static electricity. So if you get one of these bottles, you just spritz your thread, hold it back probably about that far from the thread. Make sure you're not pointing it towards anything electrical. Nothing electrical. And then just hit your thread with just a little bit of moisture. It helps considerably. It truly, truly does. All right. Enough blah, blah, blah. Now let's lay down. What should we lay down now? Let's lay down a blind hem stitch since we're right in this area. There we go. I'm going to make some adjustments over here just slightly. Going to about 3 on stitch width. Right there. So now we'll lay down a blind hem stitch, and then we'll go into a tri-motion stitch on these 4 layers of heavy grade denim. Okay. All right. So let's try the blind hem now. Hopefully our little moisturizing of that thread will solve our problem. All right, here we go. Take it a little bit slower. I love these feed dogs. Look at this. I'm not steering it at all, and it's right on course. Yeah, beautiful blind hem stitch as well. You can see that right there. If I angle the camera down, you can see it. Beautiful blind hem, both on the top stitch, top stitching, and also on the lock stitching as well. Yeah. Now we're going to try a tri-motion stitch, which will really, really put that thread to the test, won't it? It put that needle to the test as well. We'll see if we can pull off a tri-motion stitch. And I'm going to shut the heater off as well, so I'm not continuing to generate more dry air. We only spritz that thread one time, and I'm just continuing to contribute to that dry air with that heater running. So I'm gonna man it up a little bit and just hang out in a cooler workshop as we try this tri-motion stitch now through all of this denim material. See how we do. And again, you want to offset it just a little bit, because as that tri-motion stitch kicks in, it's going to pull that material backwards. So we have to take that into account, don't we? All right, so let's go to a tri-motion stitch now. You've seen me do this before. I'm going to turn our stitch selector over to this blue region, and I think we will try. Well, I'll tell you what, you give me your opinion. We've got 3 tri-motion stitches we could try. We've got the pearlized stretch straight stitch. We've got the feather stitch, and we've got the overlock stitch. So we've got overlock, feather, and then straight stitch, which is kind of a pearlized tri-motion. I want the audience to type in the live chat which of these tri-motion stitches you want me to do on these 4 layers of denim. So go ahead and do that now. What stitch do you want to see on these 4 layers of denim? The feather, the overlock, or the pearlized straight stitch? I'm not seeing anybody yet. Haha. So I'm going to make an adjustment, getting us over into that range at least. There, I'm on the overlock. No input. So I'm going to go over to the pearlized stitch. I'm going to go to the pearlized stitch on these 4 layers of denim, and we'll see how this machine handles that. I've got to adjust my stitch length to the maximum, so it's on the default 4, which is colorized blue, kind of a bluish purple, just like the stitches. And then I also have to accommodate for that stitch width on this as well. I'm going to go right around 4.5. I'm not going to make it quite as wide. We'll tighten it up just a little bit, All right, since we're doing this tri-motion stitch, I'm going to see if I can bring the camera down so you can check it out as we're doing it. Right about there. And we'll do this pearlized straight stitch. I got to bring my take-up arm all the way up. There we go. All right, so check this out. A pearlized straight stitch on 4 layers of denim material. I'm hoping that we can pull this off. Hoping. All right, here we go. And watch when I launch, you're going to see that material get pulled back. That's why we offset it, right? That's why we offset it. All right, here we go. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. Nice and easy. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Press your foot up. Oh, yeah, beautiful. Very, very nice. Very nice. Let's look at this. We'll look at all 3 of these stitches now. We did the 3-point zigzag. We did the blind hem, and now we did this pearlized stretch straight stitch through these 4 layers of very heavy denim. And we're doing it again. We're not doing it with a denim needle. We're doing it with a leather needle, which is going to have different attributes than obviously a needle that would be more designed for this type of material. Yeah, really quite lovely, Maybe a little bit of a tension adjustment, but I think all in all, we did quite well. Let's take a look at this. So these are our 4 layers of denim. We did the 3-point zigzag. We did the blind hem. And then we just did this pearlized stretch straight stitch. Boy, that's a mouthful. Stretch straight stitch, something like that. Yeah, really, really lovely. We'll look at it in totality. Really lovely stitching. And imagine the overlay, again, with these tri-motion stitches where they're overlaying the thread as much as 4 times in a very, very small space. We're using a huge needle for that type of application. We're using a 9014 Schmetz leather needle. We should be using a size 7511 or even a size 70 needle to do this intricate type sewing. So we're really kind of pushing this machine a little bit further than we normally would through that much denim. See that? That's a lot of denim. Let's take a look at this closer as we kind of go down. Really, really nice stitching. Very, very nice stitching. And now we're going to look at the lock stitching. I'll kind of turn it around. We'll look at the lock stitching as well. And you're going to notice on that tri-motion stitch that we needed a little bit more tension to tighten up that stitching for the tri-motion stretch straight stitch, that pearlized stitch. It did a decent job considering our setup, but it needed a little bit more tension pulling up. Let me see if I can line this up so you can see it. That threading, the thread on the bottom for that pearlized stitch is okay, but it's a little bit muddled. It's a little bit muddled because we didn't have enough upper tension pulling up. Go across and look at that. It's a little bit muddled. We needed more upper tension. With our current tension setting for upper tension, we could pull off the blind hem, okay. We could pull off the multiple zigzag stitch on top, the 3-point zigzag, but the bottom stitch, we lacked a little bit. See that? We lacked that a little bit because it didn't have enough pull-up factor. So that's an easy fix when you're going through this much denim. When you're going through this much denim, you need more pull-up factor, and I didn't account for that to give that greater clarity of stitch. We needed more pull-up factor for that. Yeah. So it's important when you're looking at stitches like this to kind of analyze them a little bit. And as you're looking at them, you can make an adjustment yourself based on what you're seeing. You see here, the lock stitch doesn't have enough pull-up, so you just adjust it. The stitch length setting, Robin, the stitch length setting right now is by default on these three stitches. These three stitches here, I'll look at them from the angle. You can probably see them a little bit better. For these three tri-motion stitches, the stretch straight, the feather stitch, and then also the overlock stitch, for all three of these tri-motion stitches, you are immediately having to adjust the stitch length to the longest setting. You may be able to see that in the shot. You may not. You see, I have get my little flashlight on there. You see right now we're set on 4. And you may not be able to see it in the shot, but the 4 is kind of a bluish color. The 4 is a bluish color, and it's correlated in color to the tri-motion stitches that are also a bluish color as well. So on the stitch length, you adjust this all the way to the max to 4 so that it's on the 4 that's blue to accommodate these 3 different stretch tri-motion stitches. On the stitch width, you've got a little bit more discretion in setting the stitch width, but this, for any of the tri-motion stitches on this model, you set it to the maximum all the way on the blue. I think that was Robin's question. Yeah. Just going to show this one more time. See if we can impact that lock stitch just a little bit. And hopefully I don't take too much away from the top stitch. All right, so we're going to do that stretch straight one more time. We had really good definition on the top. We had less definition on the lock stitch. So we're going to try it one more time. I bumped up our upper tension slightly, and we'll see if that helps us with our situation. All right, here we go. Hold on one second. That static is intense. It kind of flipped through there again a little bit. I'm getting a little bit of a curliness. Hold on one second. I noticed that thread was pivoting again a little bit. Okay, back to this. All right, we'll see if our adjustment did it. We'll compare the two side by side. Yeah, that did help. That did help for sure. But again, we're sewing with a leather needle on denim, so our needle really is not the ideal choice for our sew off that we're doing. Okay, so this is sew off number one. You look at the top row, they're going to look real close to each other. This is our top stitching for this straight stretch stitch. Angle this down, see if that helps. Camera's saying, I don't know if I want to focus or not. Try it like this. So as we go down, you can see that our top stitching is pretty consistent. It's pretty consistent on both rows for this this stretch straight pearlized type stitch. We're looking really, really close both rows. But as we turn it over, that row above, you see how it was real muddled? We got a little bit better clarity this time. We got a little bit better clarity this time with increasing that upper tension. But still, we could go even further if we were going to be sewing this type of tri-motion stitch on this much denim. It's still struggling a little bit, and you always find that with the lock stitching because it has to sweep down with the needle and then pull that thread back up. But our clarity with the tension adjustment, our clarity when you look at these two side by side, our clarity is definitely improved a little bit through these 4 layers of denim compared to that row above. That was our first one. This was our second one. But we would have to go even further to increase that upper tension more. It's still not pulling hard enough. It's still not pulling quite hard enough to accommodate for this type of sew off through that much denim. That's a lot of denim to execute a tri-motion stitch on, a lot of denim. But all in all, I'm really pleased. We got some great top stitching, and we would just have to make further adjustments on that upper tension to accommodate this type of material with our current setup. Just have to do a little bit more adjusting. Yeah. So, all right, let me see what our time is. 2 hours, 33 minutes. Let's see here. I think we'll move to some Amazon paper. I've already done cotton. You could also do fleece material as well. Go through some fleece. I think I'll do fleece first, and then we'll do Amazon last. Do Amazon last. Okay, so we're doing fleece material now. I'm going to switch over to a zigzag. See if we can switch over to a zigzag now. Great stitch to try to lay down on material like this. Do a standard zigzag. So I just adjusted our stitch pattern selector to zigzag. I'm going to decide on the width. I'm not going to go absolutely max. I'll go to right around, probably like right around 4. Right around 4. And the length will go, the length we're adjusting it from 4 to right around 3.5. Going to try to maintain the balance of that zigzag stitch. All right, let's lay down a zigzag on this fleece. I should say fake fleece. And then we'll decide what our next stitch on this material might be. Maybe we'll lay down a feather stitch on it. That would be kind of fun to see a feather stitch on this fleece material. Okay, here we go. Zigzag, and then we'll try a feather stitch with that tri-motion after this. All right, here we go. All right, nice little zigzag going down that. Now we'll try to lay down a tri-motion feather stitch on this. And again, realize we're sewing fleece material with a leather needle. Definitely not the ideal setup. Not the ideal setup at all. What did I do with my clips? Oh, there they are. Yeah, you can see this thread is still trying to curl up even after we added moisture to it. It's still trying to curl. Yeah, lovely zigzag, beautiful zigzag. And you can see the thickness of these 2 layers of this polyester made to look like fleece. It's not a light sew off at all. So we've got our zigzag on there. Now let's see if we can really step it up and add a tri-motion feather stitch next to it. I don't know how it's going to turn out. This could be a little bit tricky. So we're going to adjust this, our stitch selector over here, to one of our tri-motion stitches, our feather stitch. And then by default, we have to move this all the way to the max. The number 4 on the stitch length is blue, just like these are blue. So we've got to match the 2. I'm going all the way to the max. And then we're going to give it plenty of clearance. Just adjust it down just a little bit, make it a little bit more narrow. 4. And we'll try this tri-motion stitch now on this fleece, fake fleece material, and see what we think of this. I should also accommodate the presser foot a little bit. Right now I'm at the max because of that denim we were sewing. I should back this off just a little bit, right about to there. See how I gave it a little bit more of a margin, so it's not pushing down quite as hard as when we were sewing those 4 layers of denim material. Also, I'm going to try to bring the camera down as best as I can, give you a different perspective of this. You can see our zigzag right there. Now we're going to try a tri-motion stitch and see how we do on this one. This is going to be a tricky one to do through these 2 layers of fleece material. All right, I'm going to try to get the camera out far enough that it focuses. And here we go. I was bragging about how well these feed dogs keep that material orientated, but when you're dealing with a fake fleece material like this, 2 layers of it, you might have to steer just a little bit to keep it on course. You saw me just gently nudging it a little bit. To try to keep it orientated. This stuff is so fluffy and it just got a puffiness to it, that does make it a little bit harder for those feed dogs to manage, even these feed dogs on this great machine. So let me give this a clip and we'll look at both of these stitch lines, the zigzag on this 100% polyester made to look like fleece. And then we'll look at the zigzag and then also this tri-motion feather stitch that we just laid down, and see what you think of both of these stitch lines. I think they're quite extraordinary, but you make up your own opinion when you look at them. So this is our top stitching. This is our top stitching. If I hold it like this, I think we'll be able to see it better maybe, huh? Beautiful stitching. Wow. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. We'll look at it like this as well. That tri-motion stitch is incredibly, incredibly complex. And this material tends to, because it's so fluffy, it tends to shift and pivot. It tends to shift and pivot as you're sewing with it. Even the feed dogs had trouble directing it a little bit. But the machine executed a very difficult sew off and did it in a amazing way, really an amazing way. All right, let's turn over, look at the lock stitching now. Look at that lock stitching now. Yeah, really, just amazing, amazing how well through a really, really unideal setup. Our setup is horrible for sewing on this type of material, just like it is horrible for sewing on denim. It truly is. But the machine has adapted to it very, very nicely and laid down some spectacular, spectacular stitching. In view of our setup, I'm literally amazed. So there's our lock stitching. I'll kind of show it to you as best as I can in totality. Our top stitching. And again, through that much material, look at it from the end, look at it from this end. 100% polyester, made to look like fleece. And this Japanese machine made by Janome, this model 742, just did a fabulous job. So real quick, I'll just summarize what we've done and then we'll wrap up this live stream shortly. There's so many other sew-offs that we could do, but I want to be respectful of time as well. So we've got this fleece material we just did. We did this denim, which was an absolute crazy using a leather needle. We did this Italian leather, which made a lot more sense. We did this real delicate satin material. We then did 2 layers of Italian leather as well. These are the 2 layers right there. And then we did this, we did all the stitches this machine can do, minus the buttonhole on this 100% cotton with this stiffener in it. So already compared to other YouTube channels don't go this far, especially not in a live stream. There's too much risk. It's terrifying when you don't know what's going to happen. But we don't care. We're just going to do it. If we have a hiccup, we adjust, we do it again, and we just get her done, right? We get her done. So do a couple more sew-offs, and then we're going to wrap up this live stream. Feel like I want to do a little bit of cowhide just because we've got a leather needle in the machine. So we're going to try to lay down some stitching on this genuine cowhide. Get that set up there. think I'll put on a little bit of music just so you can get a break from my voice. A little bit of music, maybe. Oh, I got a couple of text messages too, maybe for that spray bottle. Yeah, Robin from Minnesota. Robin from Minnesota is saying she wants one of those bottles. So I'll make sure I get one to Robin. She was the only one that responded, so I'm not going to offer any more during this live stream. But we'll see if we can get one of those bottles over to Robin in Minnesota. And you know what? If she's close enough to Minnehaha Falls, we're a couple miles away from Minnehaha Falls. I'll leave it up to Robin, but Susie and I could also meet Robin at a designated location and have a chance to actually meet each other for the first time and give her the spray bottle in person. So that's another option. Instead of mailing it probably only a couple of miles in Minnesota, I'll leave it up to Robin. If she wants to meet Susie and I in person, we'll give her the spray bottle and we'll have a chance to get acquainted a little bit. Since we see each other in a sense through the live streams all the time, we could actually get a chance to meet each other. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah. So Robin wants to meet us. That would be cool. Super cool. So we'll plan on meeting Robin and getting her own spray bottle. These essential oil bottles are really amazing. And then we can give that directly to her. Yeah, cool. All right. Let's do some genuine cowhide. And I think for sake of fun and presentation as well, that on this cowhide, I'd like to try to go down and do a 3-point zigzag, but I'd also like to try to do a feather stitch as well. I'd like to try to do a feather stitch. Yeah, I think doing a feather stitch would be super cool. Let me see here. But first of all, let's put on a little bit of music to give you a break from my voice. We'll put on some Japanese music since we're dealing with a Japanese machine, right? And some of you may have not heard this, but we played a little bit in the beginning. All right, here we go. Yeah, that's a nice little interlude of music there. So I think my leather needle, is getting just a little bit tired because I can see there's some anomalies on here that don't quite present this stitch as well as it should. I'm going to try an overlock, see if we get the same result with some anomalies. And if we do, then what I'm going to do is look at, well, we're so close to the end. I'm not going to bother trying to change the needle out. But yeah, we'll just take that into account. Okay, let's see. I've got that set correctly. So we're going to do one more tri-motion stitch, and we'll see how this this model 742 handles it. But I think our needle is probably getting a little bit tired. I see that there are some overlay points that are missed on this stitch pattern, and I know the stitch pattern is spot on. So it's a product of needle and setup, and maybe a little bit of static as well. Well, let's try the overlock, see if we get a great result, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right, here we go. Yep, we're getting the same result. Yeah, we've done the overlock multiple times in this live stream. So I'll just show these to you real quick. We've done the overlock on cotton right there. To perfection. Really quite nice. We did the overlock on the satin as well. And had a beautiful outcome with the overlock. And and also the feather as well on the cotton was quite nice. Quite nice. But when you start to get a tired needle and maybe develop a barb on it as well, here we've done the feather one as well on this fleece material that's made out of polyester. Absolutely gorgeous feather sew off. And what we're getting now is we're getting some pattern degradation. Pattern degradation is to me is an indication that we're having issues with our needle, which is kind of surprising because we beat up Schmetz needles all the time, and we don't have any pattern degradation. But you can see here we had the degradation issue with the feather stitch. Certain points, that crossover piece is missing, and then we just did this overlock stitch, and you can see here we're missing one, and here we're missing one as well. And that's a result of the needle having an issue. So I think what we'll do at this point is I'm going to eliminate the overlock and the feather stitch, and we'll finalize this live stream by focusing on laying down some basic zigzagging or some straight stitching on the Amazon Prime paper, and then we'll wrap this up. And of course, before this machine goes back to Darlene, I'll go ahead and put in a fresh universal needle. But if you get this happening, if your machine is sewing incredibly well, like this, or like this, and then all of a sudden it starts sewing where it's missing part of the pattern. You see that here. The rest of this is spot on. But here we have two little faults right there. And then we've got a fault right there on the overlock, and we've got a fault right there on the overlock. Right away, focus on your needle. And just go ahead and change it out. I'm not going to do that now because we're going to finish up the live stream laying down a zigzag on the Amazon paper. After running this needle through all of this on the live stream, plus what I ran that needle through off camera as well. And only at the end here, we're starting to have a little bit of an issue with that needle giving up the ghost. So yeah, you can see here, this was off camera as well. Beautiful overlock, beautiful feather stitch as well on this 100% cotton. So we've got a needle that is not well at this point, but we're going to see if we can finish off the live stream with a needle that's not incredibly happy. And we'll see if we can get through this final sew off. I want to say this is 14 layers. Hopefully we can pull this off, pivoting away from the tri-motion stitches. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 layers. 14 layers of Amazon Prime packing parchment paper. And we're going to be using a zigzag that has needle swing, but it doesn't have the complexity of needle swing and overlay that these tri-motion stitches do. So even though our needle is faulty at this point, even though we probably have a barb at the end of that needle that's causing us to have issues with our tri-motion stitches, I think we can finish this off successfully. I hope we can, focusing strictly on a zigzag stitch. Hopefully we can. All right, so we're going to lay that into place. Air is really dry down here. I'm going to get that thread just a little bit moistened one more time. All right, I'm going to change our stitching back to a zigzag. I think I went the wrong way. Yep. Actually, we can do a 3-point zigzag. That'll be fun. I think that'll be fun. We'll do a 3-point zigzag on this parchment paper, 14 layers of it, and then we'll lay down a standard zigzag, see if we can pull that off, even though our needle is getting really, really not too happy. All right, first of all, a 3-point zigzag and then a standard zigzag. Hopefully we can pull this off. Otherwise, we'll just wrap it up. And I'll change this needle off camera. Actually, let me turn this paper around so you can see the thickness that we're going through. I'm also going to increase our presser foot pressure as well. And we're dealing with 14 layers of parchment paper. Get that take-up arm all the way up. All right, 14 layers of Amazon Prime parchment paper. I'm hoping I can pull off this final sew off, laying down a 3-point zigzag and then a regular zigzag. Even though our needle is ready to quit, we'll see if we can pull off these last 2 sew offs, and then we'll wrap up this live stream. Okay. All right. So here we go. 3-point zigzag, 14 layers of Amazon packing parchment paper. All right. Here we go. This machine has so much pride, so much get up and go. How we do on the back? Beautiful, beautiful. I'll pull that thread a little bit. There's our top stitching for the 14 layers of Amazon Prime packing parchment paper. Really a lovely, lovely 3-point zigzag stitch across all this paper. And we've got our lock stitching on the back, equally spectacular. I love the little bullet holes coming through as well. Give myself a little bit more thread. We can look at this even before I cut the threads. Some beautiful, beautiful 3-point zigzagging through all of this paper. 14 layers of it. If you kind of look at it from here, it gives you an idea of what we just sewed through. And that was without a hand start. But again, this has a motor that can peak at 1 amp. So it got the job done very, very nicely. Let me clip these threads and we'll look just a little bit closer at this. And then we'll lay down one more stitch pattern next to it before we consider this live stream complete. So this is our top stitching. Yeah, we'll get up like this, see if this will help. This is our top stitching with this Amazon Prime packing parchment paper. 14 layers. If you've never tried sewing paper before, give it a try. It really, really gives you a new appreciation for where your machine is at as far as strength and clarity of stitch. The clarity of this stitch is unmistakable. Really, really impressive. Although the needle is failing in a couple of spots. You can see that. You see a little spot right there in the middle where, because the needle is at a point where it's ready to give up the ghost, we had a little bit of a missed opportunity there, and right there on the end as well. So our needle is not happy, but that's okay. We're going to push it just one more time, laying down some really, really good looking stitching. But we do have some flaws in the stitching because the needle is not happy. So all in all, beautiful stitching through all of that paper. Here's our lock stitching. Take a look at that nice and close as well. See what we think of that. Trying to get the right angle here. There you can see the punch throughs on there from the needle. Yeah, if we were at the beginning, I would switch out the needle, but it doesn't make sense at this point. We'll just accept what we get and move on from there. But some beautiful stitching in spite of our needle having a flaw on it now. Yeah, beautiful stitching. Again, that's a lot of paper to go through. You look at it from any end. Especially doing this to a needle that's already flawed. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? But oh well. So 14 layers of Amazon packing parchment paper. We're adding that to our stack of all that we did during this live stream. It looks kind of like that. And I think I will. I was going to quit there, but I think we'll just do one last sew off. I'll see if I can pull this off. See if we can pull off one last sew off with this parchment paper. What should I do? Maybe I could do a blind hem stitch, maybe. Why don't we do a blind hem? See if we can pull that off. Blind hem stitch. Okay, final sew off, I promise. Final sew off. We've done all these other sew offs. I'll review them again at the very end, but we're going to do Amazon packing parchment paper one more time. See if we get down here. One more time, we're going to do this parchment paper. And we're going to be laying down or trying to lay down a blind hem stitch. All right, here we go. Final sew off. And then I'm going to retire this very, very tired Schmetz needle. All right, here we go. I can actually hear, if you listen to the machine very carefully, you can actually hear the rough spot on that needle that's causing issues with our tri-motion stitches. You can actually hear it rubbing. Listen real close. You can actually hear that rough spot on the needle catching as it's going through. Yeah, good finish. Good finish. we'll stop with this blind hem, and I'll review all the stitch offs we did, and then we'll consider this live stream complete. And then I probably will not be live streaming Darlene's other machine, which is a Singer 15-91, because I have so many videos on this channel of Singer 15-91s. Does anyone remember with regard to the 1591? I'll give you a special bonus gift if you know this, but you have to answer it real quick without looking it up. You either know it or you don't. What year was the Singer 15-91 introduced? Does anyone remember when the 15-91 was introduced? And if you really want to impress the audience, when was its big brother introduced? The big brother being the Singer 201-2. So if you know that, type it in live chat, and that'll be pretty doggone impressive. Pretty doggone impressive. Yeah. Let's take a look at these stitches. Our final stitch off with a Schmetz needle that has done an excellent job, but it's ready to retire. Definitely ready to retire. Let me get this up a little bit higher. There we go. Yeah, I can see that needle is not happy. And Tim put down 1927. That's real close. That's real close, but not quite. The Singer 15-91 was actually introduced in 1932. 1932. And its big brother, the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines, the 201-2, was introduced about 3 years later in 1935. But Tim came very, very close. Very, very close. Well done, Tim. Well done. Look at it like this as well. Again, is our top stitching with a very tired Schmetz leather needle. Beautiful stitching. Really, really quite lovely. Quite lovely stitching. All that we put this machine and needle through, the machine is still going strong. The needle is saying it's kind of tapping out, isn't it? It's tapping out. You can see a little bit of that in the joining points on that blind hem stitch. So our lock stitching now on the back. We'll see how I did on that. See how we did there. Schmetz needles, in my opinion, are still the best in the world. They're still the best in the world, but even they have a breaking point, don't they? Even they have a breaking point. So some beautiful lock stitching. I don't know if you can see that in the shot or not. Some beautiful lock stitching. Some equally beautiful top stitching. And with that, I think we can consider the live stream to be all but complete. I'm just going to see if I can rotate this machine just a little bit so we can admire the great job that this Model 742 has done. Again, a machine that would have been made by Janome, the first domestic sewing machine company in Japan. And they really do, and they continue to do a brilliant job of building great machines. They truly do. We can see that in the sew off on this genuine cowhide we did. Again, another sew off here with the cowhide. Had trouble with the tri-motion stitches because our needle is done. Our needle is saying, I quit. So all is well and good. A lot of leather sewing. We did this fake fleece material. That's 100% polyester, laying down some beautiful stitching on that as well. We did this Italian leather that I think it was Shelley wanted to see that, if I remember correctly. We did 2 layers of the Italian leather as well, laying down some beautiful stitching. We went to the super light side and we sewed this satin material, laying down some beautiful stitching, including the tri-motion stitching before the needle got tired, and had some great results with this satin as well. We did cotton with a stiffener, some beautiful stitching on there as well. We did 4 layers of denim, and we did another tri-motion stitch, this pearlized straight stretch stitch, along with the 3-point zigzag and the blind hem stitching as well. And then finally, we did all of the stitches on this sew off, and we did it on another one as well earlier on. And then we wrapped up all of this. All of this was live stream. We wrapped up all of this sewing 14 layers of Amazon Prime packing parchment paper to put the cherry on top of the cake, if you will. So all of this, you can see it better even from this side, all of this on this live stream, so that this model 742 made by Janome out of Japan is finally ready to graduate from the workshop. So I want to thank everybody for joining. I know that Saturdays are always busy. Our audience participation has been a little bit on the light side, which is okay. We've had a number of folks in the live stream earlier on in the hundreds. Now we've got an intimate family gathering of about 10 dedicated souls that are setting aside busy time on a Saturday to say, we want to celebrate Darlene's Janome Japanese Model 742. And I'm grateful for each and every one of you that took time to do that today. It's always great to have an owner's machine in the workshop and to celebrate that machine starting out limping and then ending a live stream where it's leaping. Yeah, leaping and limping. It's always great to have that success, isn't it? So I'm going to get a little bit closer to this machine, put on a little bit more music to wrap us up. I want to thank the leadership team for their dedication to taking care of the family. And our latest leader, Alex Alcas out of California. I kind of nudged him a little bit for quite a while, and now I kind of just pushed him into the leadership role, and I think he's happy as can be. So it's always great to have new leaders join the team. They all have their own gifts and talents, and they all have their own passion points. So it makes us that much better. Don't you agree? So it's great to have Alex on the team now, and all the other leaders as well, and all of you that are in the live stream and were in the live stream earlier, and all of you that will view this later as a video. So grateful for each and every one of you, and also grateful to Darlene for giving me the opportunity to have this really cool Janome made Model 742 in the workshop. Yeah, really, really cool. All right, some music, and then as you need to step away, and have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great Saturday, as we are now in the month of March. When did that happen? Just yesterday, I think. So welcome to March. Great to have all of you here, and God bless you. God bless you all.